Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a bit of a different video, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize up front if I sound different, if I sound rough, if I sniffle, because I am coming off of the tail end of COVID. I can't believe I caught COVID 3 years into it, but here we are. It happened. So what actually happened is that Alvin and I were going to travel to a family wedding. It was going to be our first big trip post COVID, or ever since COVID started. And we're supposed to go to a family wedding in Mexico. But unfortunately, we happened to fly the exact morning the FAA disaster happened. So I figured, why don't we do a little bit of a story time, because it's quite insane what we had to go through, and then do an unpack with me, because originally what I had actually mostly already filmed was a pack with me for my trip to Mexico. And considering that never happened, I figured, why not do an unpack with me? But I couldn't film an unpack with me immediately because the airline also lost our luggage. So it's about almost a week since we're able to get home. We are now mostly recovered. So why not do a story time? I will throw some timestamps down below. This is mostly going to be a rambly story time. Feel free to speed this up to 1.75, listen to it like a podcast, and then later on in the video I will do, I think I'm probably just going to throw some music over it, but we could do a nice calming unpack and organize with me, because I feel like that's really what I need after the absolute hell that has been the last week and a half for us. So yeah, so check out the timestamps down below. If not, if you want to listen, strap in, get comfy, because this is going to be a long one. So to set the stage, we were flying to Oaxaca, Mexico for a family wedding. It was actually Alvin's cousin who was getting married, and I've never been to Mexico. My fiance is also disabled. He was in a really bad motorcycle accident a couple of years ago, and now more often than not, he needs to walk with a cane. Just setting that down for later in the story. But because of that, we decided we don't travel that often. We wanted to travel and give him room for his leg, so we bought 3 business class tickets and then 1 premium economy ticket. So there was 4 flights. It's 2 flights there. It was a flight from Newark to Dallas, Dallas to Oaxaca. So for 3 of those flights, we bought business class. 1 of those flights, we bought the premium economy because there was no business class on that flight. That was the first flight. So that first flight left from Newark at 5 a.m. So because it leaves at 5, it boards at 4:30. We had to get to the airport at 2:30 a.m. So this is before everything, kicked off, right? So I barely sleep the night before. I felt so anxious. I had never felt this anxious. I'm not an anxious traveler. Usually I love to travel. I love being on the road. I love flying. Typically, I love traveling, so I don't know why I was feeling so anxious about this trip. But I think one of the things I'm learning is that I need to trust my gut a bit more often, because there was a reason why I was really anxious. So I barely sleep the night before. We drop Rex off at my grandmother's house because he was going to stay there for the week, and my grandmother's the one who actually drops us off at the airport. And this is the day before the new terminal opens at Newark, by the way, so I don't know if that's why they were so understaffed, but we get to the airport at 2:30. There's a long line of people waiting to check in. There's not a single employee. We don't see a single employee until 3 a.m. So because of that, we're in this long line. It takes us an hour just to check in and check our bags. I like to check bags when I travel. I'm not someone who can travel light. I like having options, especially when I'm going to 3 formal events. This was a destination wedding. It was formal. We had to, look nice. So I just was you know what, let's just pack a bag so we can check it and not have to worry about bringing everything on a carry-on, because normally I hate doing carry-on. I'm too short to put things in the overhead bins. I don't like it. Anyway. So spends us an hour checking in, blah, blah, blah. We get to TSA and the line is ridiculous. Again, I don't think a single employee got there until 3. So it took us another hour and a half to get through TSA. So all of that said and done, we get to the gate 10 minutes before our original boarding time. And we're yes, this is great. We thought we got here early, but that's fine. We finally get to the gate. As soon as we get to the gate and sit down, flight's delayed an hour. And we're oh, well, you know what? That's fine. We went through a lot this morning. It gives us some time to kind of chill out a little bit before the flight. But during this hour is when shit kind of hit the fan. So it was like around 4:30 when we got to the gate, which is the original boarding time if it was going to leave at 5. The flight was then delayed an hour, so our new boarding time wasn't going to be until like 5:30. 5:30 comes, and that is when they start making the announcement that there is a nationwide system outage. And this, if you did not see the news or hear about it, was the giant FAA outage that happened. This, again, as a millennial, I am so freaking sick of hearing about once-in-a-generation event, but apparently this was a once-in-a-generation event because the system never goes out. But apparently it went out. And it's an important system that alerts pilots about, what's happening in real time so they can be very safe. So I'm not upset about that. I'm upset that of all times for this system that never goes out, for the system to go out, it went out. So it went out. I think it actually went out like the night before, and it was on like a backup, and then the backup was corrupted, and then we didn't actually start seeing shit happen until the next morning, which is when we were at the airport. So we were told at 5:30 the nationwide system was happening. It wasn't just American Airlines, it wasn't just us, it was literally the entire country was at a ground stop. And honestly, looking back, this is when we should have gone home. we were at our local airport. Our family's house was literally 5 minutes away. Knowing what I know now, if I ever see this happen again, if I ever see something delayed like this, or I hear about a nationwide system, anything like that, go home. If you can go home, just go home right then. I have it in my notes because I had to write notes for us to submit this to a lot of places because of what happened. But literally I wrote, this is when we should have cut our losses and gone home, because that's exactly what we should have done. But no. So we sat there and we waited. So we're sitting there. I'm like on TikTok. I'm watching the news and everything. And I think it was around 8 a.m. So we were there since 2. It was like at 8 a.m. when the FAA actually like announces all flights are grounded. Completely grounded. Nothing can take off until like 9:30. So we're sitting here. And I think it was at this point where we said, okay, so we're going to stay until like 10. If the flight doesn't leave at 10, then we're going to leave. We're going to leave the airport and we're just going to call it and we're going to go home. But I think it was around, let me look at my notes. So we finally boarded the flight at 9. So we got the airport at like 2:30, did not board the flight until 9. So a long time. It's a very long time. But we boarded the flight and we took off at around 9:30. So that was our first flight. And at that point we were thinking, okay, that's the worst of it. Right? It can't really get that much worse. The first flight took a while, but as long as we can get to Dallas, as long as we can get our connecting flight, which, by the way, our connecting flight, there was only one flight, I think, a day from Dallas to Oaxaca, the regional airport that we needed to go to. So we knew that all flights were delayed anyway, so we were just really hoping that the domino effect would happen, that flight would get delayed and long enough for us to get to Dallas and to board that flight. But once we landed in Dallas, we realized that was not the case. So we got to Dallas, I think around 2 p.m. local time in Dallas, and we found out, like, after we landed and we checked everything, that our flight left without us. So the flight to Oaxaca left not on time, but I think it was like an hour late. So we would have to rebook. So landed in Dallas, we went to the American Airlines, like, customer support desk to rebook, and this was the line. We went to the back. This line took us about 2.5 hours to get to the front of the line. So this is after we've been at the airport since 2, did not sleep the night before. We're in Dallas, we're waiting in line for 2.5 hours. And I did not mention, but we were actually on the same flight as the bride's parents. So the bride's parents are there, freaking out, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get to this wedding, which is understandable. Your kid's getting married, you want to see them get married. Alvin and I, at this point, just want to get home. We regretted coming to Dallas and seeing the line, seeing how badly everyone has to like rebook and seeing how badly the domino effects are happening. We knew there probably was not a great chance we were going to make it to Oaxaca. So in Dallas, we're already sitting in line and we're just like, okay, if we can rebook, we're just going to rebook and head right home as soon as we can. Because Alvin's leg is acting up, I'm starting to feel sick. So at this point, it's like 2-3 p.m. in Dallas, I start to feel sick. I start to feel symptoms happen. And I'm like, this cannot be great. So we just want to go home. We just want to cut our losses and go home. The entire time we are in this line, unfortunately, the bride's parents are trying to rope us in to helping them get to Oaxaca, which is not what we signed up for. They are, capable adults. They're in their 60s. They are not, disabled. They're a little bit older, but they're able-bodied. We did not sign up to hold their hands to get to the wedding, which is unfortunately what they wanted. So they wanted us to rent a car, drive 4 hours to another airport, get to that airport, take a flight from that airport to Mexico City, and then take a flight from Mexico City to Oaxaca. And I said, hell no, we are not going to do that. If you don't know, I don't drive. So my fiance would be the only one who have to drive. My fiance, who is disabled, who's in a lot of pain right now because of what just happened. And unfortunately, you know, they want to get to the wedding. So they keep pushing this. They want us to drive them. They want us to do this, and this. And we're not going to do it. So I literally spent the entire 2.5 hours we were in this line to get to the front arguing with the bride's parents because we're done. We want to go home. We're not going to go on this wild goose chase for the slight chance of getting to this wedding. Okay? So we're cutting our losses. That's it. They're on the phone constantly trying to talk to people, trying to book. Nothing's bookable. There's no flights at all because of what just happened this morning. Everyone had, like, literally so many flights are canceled. Everyone had to rebook. There was just like nothing. There was nothing available. So we get to the front of the line. The bride's parents take the entitled boomer way of doing this and start screaming at the gate agents. And I'm like, absolutely not. You're not going to do that. So I start talking to somebody else politely. And I'm like, we just want to get back to Newark. Can we please rebook whenever we can, as soon as we can, to get back to Newark? The gate agent got us a flight. So this was around 3 o'clock. There was a 5:45 flight back to Newark. And we were like, that is great. Can we please get on that one? They book us. Because at that point, they had told us there's no way we can get you to Oaxaca. There's nothing. Nothing is booked. And it's not just American Airlines. Every other airlines are also, it's insane. The only thing that you can do is try to go standby on another flight, which she said basically had a 0% chance of actually getting on that flight. Or you could do that 4-hour drive to the other airport and try to make it to Mexico City from there. But then there was a great chance that instead of getting stuck in Dallas, you would get stuck in a foreign country, which did not sound like a fun time at all. So at that point, we split up from the bride's parents. They're still screaming on the phone. They're trying to figure out how to get to Oaxaca. We've got our tickets back to Newark, and we're like, okay, we're just gonna go home. We're cutting our losses. We're canceling the hotel. We're done. So we're going home. So we run to the gate that they told us the flight was at. As soon as we get there, it was immediately redirected to a different gate. So we went from one terminal to another, and then immediately had to go to a third terminal because that's where the flight changed to. So mind you, at this time, almost it's been a long day of travel, no sleep, barely had anything to eat. I'm starting to feel sick. My fiance's got his leg all messed up, and we're running from terminal to terminal. So we finally get to the terminal where the flight is at. There's a bunch of other people waiting for this Newark flight. Great. We sit and we wait. 5:45 comes, flight is delayed for an hour. 6:45 comes, delayed for another hour. 7:45 comes, they delay it for 2 hours. And this is not going great. It's really not going great. And we're just like, this is the only flight that we can get back to Newark. And we don't want to try going to Oaxaca at this point. It's just not going to work. So this keeps happening. The flights keep getting delayed until right before midnight. And at this point, they're actually giving us real updates. So okay, so this flight is coming in that has our pilot on it. That pilot's going to come over. This other flight is coming in that has our flight attendants. They are going to come over here. And we see people start to come over, and we see pilots, and we see crew, and they start going onto the plane and setting it up. And we're just like, yes, this is finally it. We're finally going to get on this plane, and we're finally going to head home and just call it a day. And then after all the crew gets on the plane, they cancel the flight. So I don't know if the crew timed out, unfortunately, but at that point it was almost 1 a.m. and we are going on around 23, 24 hours at this point. I'm feeling sick. I'm feeling overwhelmed, and we have no idea when the next flight is or if we're going to be able to make it. So we get back in line again to rebook, and this is just when I start crying. So we're in line waiting to rebook. Everyone around us is also losing it. I watched one older woman have an actual complete breakdown at the desk, and I'm just in line crying, and Alvin is standing there. I know he's in a lot of pain with his cane, and he's just been so strong through this whole thing. And I have to say, they say before you marry somebody to go through a really tough experience with them. This whole experience, we did not fight once. We just really supported each other, and it made me love him even more. So I didn't think I was going to tear up, but here we are. that's the best way to, confirm if you found your person, because I don't think I would have made it without him. Holy shit, I didn't think I was gonna cry. Oh my God. So while we're waiting in line, there's actually like a group of people that I think were traveling for a work thing. So they all work together and they're checking their like bookings and they're talking to people, and they all decide at the last minute, like, you know what, screw it, we're getting a hotel because our work is going to cover it. So they all leave, which is great because that was like half the line in front of us. So after they all leave and they all decide to get a hotel, and they got a hotel because I think they're trying to get to Newark, and they were like, there's no open flights. We can't book anything. So we're going to a hotel, which was great because shorter line. But then also I heard, no flights. So at this point, I'm crying and I'm like, I have no idea how or when we're going to get back home at this point, because we're like stuck in the middle. Alvin does have family in Dallas, but they're leaving the next day to also try and get to this wedding. So we're kind of SOL if we can't get a flight back home. So we get to the front, and one of the nicest, employees ever. Be nice. Also, I know everyone who watches this channel is, but be nice to people at airports and employees, because they've got a shit job when things like this happen. It's totally out of their control. Everyone's losing it. So just show a little humanity, show a little kindness, and it goes a long way. And we can tell that not a lot of people had been nice, like, to these gate agents. So we were nice. We were just like, hey, we're going on 24 hours right now. Sorry, I'm crying. Is there any way we can just get back to Newark? And because of that, and him just being nice and us being nice, he's like, okay, I got you on the first flight out in the morning. So it was like 1 o'clock at that point, 1:30. The flight was at 8:45. So great news, it's the first flight that's out. And he said, looking at what's been happening, you're most likely able to get out if it's the first flight of the day, because it's the later flights in the day that are getting delayed and getting canceled. So we're like, well, that's great. The bad news is that they were giving like hotel vouchers to people, but if we go out on a flight that early, we would not have time to leave the airport, get a cab, go to the hotel. If we did that, we would sleep for an hour before we'd have to come back, go through security. Because remember, it took us like 3 hours to check in and go through security at the other airport. And they were like, it's not getting any better. There's a very good chance you're going to spend that much time in line again. So we basically made the decision that like we had to huff it. We had to like sleep in the airport just to have the chance of making it on this flight out of here. And I could deal with it. It's fine. I just felt so bad for Alvin. At this point, honestly, we did not do this. We should have requested a wheelchair for him. We did not. I did not even think about it at the time, but it also would have made sleeping in the airport a little easier for him. Because basically, we just like stayed at the original gate that we were at for like 2 hours, and we took turns sleeping on the floor. I literally like just slept on the floor. I used my purse and I had my scarf over my purse, and that was my pillow. And we would sleep for like 20 minutes at a time, take turns. There was this 24-hour 7-Eleven right next to the gate, so that's where we got dinner. We were just getting like coffee and drinks from there. And I know I felt rough sleeping on the floor, and I don't know how bad it was for Alvin. I know he was in a lot of pain. So that's the other thing we should have done. We should have gotten him a wheelchair at that point, because I know they had them. So we sleep there, or kind of sit there for a couple hours, and then once it hits like 4 or 5 a.m., we decided, let's try to find the gate for the next flight that we're hopefully going to be on, and let's go over there and we will wait there. So we go over, we were in Terminal D, I think, at this point, and then the flight was at a Terminal A. So we go to Terminal A, there is a Dunkin' Donuts there, but it doesn't open until 5. I think we went over at 4, it doesn't open until 5. So we get over to the gate, we don't see the flight on the TV, so we don't think it's going to be the final gate, which, spoiler alert, it wasn't. But we sat there and we were like, okay, let's try and sleep again a little bit until 5, because that's when Dunkin' Donuts opens and we can get some coffee, and then hopefully we can get on this damn flight. Also, I forgot, the really nice gate agent who helped us rebook for this 8:45 flight also like was giving us tips about where in the airport was the best to sleep, which is really sweet of him, because he knew we were going through it. So we did follow his instructions and try to find the nice couches and stuff. All of them were filled. Unfortunately, so many people were stuck at the airport that people were sleeping everywhere. There are people on the ground, there are people on all the couches, everything was filled. So that's why we decided to stay at the first gate for a while and then head over to the other gate just to wait it out. So it was an 8:45 flight, so it should have started boarding at 8 o'clock. It did not start boarding at 8 o'clock. Around 8:20, which is I think when it should have boarded, they reassigned the gate, and the gate was reassigned to a whole nother terminal. So we would have had to catch the train to get to the other gate. And so as soon as we get that on our phones, we up and we're booking it. We're literally like sprinting to the train, the air track, whatever it is, to get to the other terminal and get to our gate. So we finally get there. Unfortunately, this terminal is packed. There's like a bunch of gates, and I think these are the flights that are actually leaving. We heard like 2 or 3 other flights board and then leave, which was great. We were like, okay, flights are actually leaving. This is great. Maybe we'll actually get on this one. So we get to the gate. They delay the flight an hour, and we're like, oh shit, is this the beginning? Because that's how the other one started. They start delaying it an hour, and then it keeps going and going. But it delayed an hour, and then it started boarding. And we were like, holy shit, we're finally gonna get home. We're around hour 30 here. Barely any sleep. We were on the floor. We're finally like here. There's a chance to get onto this flight. So we're waiting to board. We finally board around 9:20, and the flight took off right around 10 o'clock. So a little bit delayed, but our butts are in seats, and we were heading home. That's really all that matters. And a little bit of a sidebar, I watched movies on the flights because I really didn't have much else to do on the flight. I was going to originally. I had a bunch of YouTube videos I wanted to watch, but silly me, I did not download the playlist before we got on the plane, so no signal. Couldn't watch anything. So on the first flight, I watched Don't Worry, Darling, which, I don't know why people talk shit about the movie. It's not the best movie in the world, not the worst movie in the world. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun to watch. Watched it on the first flight. On the second flight back to Newark, I watched Snowpiercer, which I've never watched the whole thing like beginning to end. I know what the plot is. I knew the beginning. I knew the ending. I had never seen the whole thing all the way through. So that was fun. Made me feel a little bit better about the flight situation. So now I remember at the beginning of the video where I said we left the day before the new terminal opened at Newark. So we landed, and we're landing at the new Terminal A. So they closed the old Terminal A that night, opened this brand new terminal. And unfortunately, like with any new things, there was a few bumps in the road. And one of the bumps was that I guess there was an automatic docking thing that should have been working to connect flights to their gates that was not working. So they had to manually hook each flight up to the gate so that you can get out of the flight. And I guess they were understaffed because they had both gates, like they were closing the other gate or the other terminal at the time that they had this one open. So after we landed, it was like 45 minutes of just sitting on the plane waiting to get off. And I've never felt claustrophobic before. If anything, I'm small, I'm 5'2". I like small spaces, they make me feel safe. I felt such bad claustrophobia on that plane. I think I had at least a 20-minute panic attack just on the plane, waiting to get off after everything that we had been through over the last 30-something hours. I was like, I just need to get off of this plane. I was losing it. My back was doing these weird spasming things. I'm sitting here trying to stretch, but since the gate, we're not docked yet, they can't let anybody out of the seats yet. So I think the most miserable part of this trip was the 45 minutes after we landed and before we got off the plane. That was just the worst. That was the worst because you're still scrunched there. You can't stretch. Alvin can't stretch his leg out. We're just stuck. Okay, so we finally hook us up. It's like 2:45-ish, I want to say, when we finally get off, 2 o'clock, when we finally get off the plane. So we get off the plane. It's this brand new, beautiful terminal that I wish we were not exhausted because we would have gone out to eat or something. They had bars, restaurants. It looked beautiful. But we're going on 30-something hours. We just want to get home. So we run to the bathroom and then we run down to baggage claim. And it takes an hour for them to get the bags off the plane and into a baggage claim. And we realize only one of our bags is here. And it's a smaller bag. So we had one kind of large one kind of large checked bag. And then we had this bag. This is the base. It's technically a carry-on bag, but we checked it because we wanted to have room for all of the shit we were going to buy on vacation because we were going to buy a lot of people presents while we were there. And so our big bag was missing. So we grabbed the little bag. We head over to the line for baggage, the baggage customer service for American, and that was another hour and a half. And it wasn't even waiting in line. It was, he got to the front of the line and was just talking with them. They had no clue where our bag was. And I only knew where our bag was because of AirTags. So I know in a little bit I'm going to go through my best tips and tricks for if you ever go through a travel disaster. AirTags. Buy them. I knew where our bag was and American Airlines did not. So looking at our bags. It was like the night before my AirTags stopped communicating with me, and I was like, uh-oh, something happened to it. Maybe they dropped it a little too hard, maybe we got smushed, I don't know. But after we landed in Newark, it reconnected and showed that our bag was in Dallas still. And I was like, well, great, the bag's in Dallas. At least it's still there. You know, at least I have a signal on it. So we had to get them to, like, confirm that they were going to send us our bag because it wasn't here, and they had to ship it on the next flight. I don't think it was until the next day. And I was like, okay, well, we need to go home now because we're exhausted. It's almost 48 hours now of just nonstop shit. So Alvin is the one waiting in line. I'm outside waiting with the other bags. And he comes out, and they took, like, our bag tag and never gave us a confirmation number. They said they would email us. We never got an email. So I had to go back at the front of the line and just say, I'm sorry, I don't want to, like, bother you guys, but we did not get a confirmation number. You took our bag tags, and I need confirmation before we leave here and it becomes a he said, she said. I need confirmation, like, you're going to send me my bag, because that's got hundreds of dollars of shit in it. Like, it's got our nicest suit. I bought gowns for this event. Like, I bought a lot of stuff. And I did go buy the, you know, when I packed stuff, I was like, only pack stuff you would be okay with losing, just in case. So nothing irreplaceable was in there. But if I didn't have to replace $500 worth of stuff, I'd rather not, you know? So I just wanted that confirmation. And it was like pulling teeth getting them to do it. So I got like a handwritten confirmation note. And I was like, okay, that's going to have to do. So now we can go home. So then it was like 4 o'clock the next day. My grandmother finally picked us up at the airport, and it's a brand new terminal, first day, so there's so much traffic, and police are everywhere, and I don't know why, but, like, this FedEx truck came in the arrivals, you know, people are arriving to get picked up and shit, parks right in the middle of, like, the big line of cars of people trying to get picked up, parks, and then he leaves to, like, go make a delivery somewhere. I have no idea. Cops came, they almost towed the truck. Like, it was insane. Anyway, it was like just like the worst combination, like the perfect storm just happened for this. So all in all, like, after we landed, it was like almost 3 hours before we actually left the airport because of all of that. So we finally got to my grandma's house. We ended up leaving Rex there for a couple of days because I was not feeling good. So we're going to get into that. But we get to my grandma's house. She had made us dinner. She packed it up for us. We got in our car because we also left our car at her house, and we drove home. We threw all of our shit on the floor and went, like, right to bed. And then the next morning is when the other fun started. So that was the main travel part of our disaster. And before I move on to, I guess we'll call it the COVID section, let's just quickly go through, like, my tips for what really helped cover our butts when this kind of disaster happened. Number 1, buy travel insurance. I totally forgot, deadass. I forgot until this morning, like a week later, that we did buy travel insurance for this trip, because we booked this almost a year ago. So that travel insurance is going to cover the cancellation fee for the hotel, because we are getting a refund on the tickets. It is processing right now because of that disaster. We are getting a refund. But for the hotel, we thought we were just going to have to eat the cancellation fee because we signed a contract. The contract says you have to cancel a month ahead of time to avoid any fees. And if you cancel up till the day of, it's like half of the amount of your trip. So it was $500. So we thought we were just going to have to eat that. But because we have travel insurance, we're going to submit a claim and that's going to be covered. So look into travel insurance, especially if it's a big trip like this. Second, I already mentioned AirTags. I am never traveling without AirTags again. This was like the number one most helpful thing. It was helpful to see in real time where our bags were. I had 2 of them, one in the big luggage, one in the small luggage. And I could see, like, as they were being moved around the big airport in Dallas, I could see where the bags were. And even though one of them, like, went offline for a little bit, eventually it did come back online and I could actually see our bag get shipped back to the airport and eventually get delivered back to us. So I would definitely say if you have Apple products, get the AirTags. And something I just did because I like to plan and make checklists, I made a packing list. Let me pull it out of here. So for each bag that we had to pack, I literally made a list of everything that I put into the bag because I wanted Alvin to take a look at it and make sure he could add anything that I might have missed. And that's because Alvin actually caught a cold before the trip. So a lot of this prep work I did on my own. So like I packed our big suitcase and I made a list of everything that I was packing so that Alvin could take a look afterwards and see, okay, is there anything that I'm missing that we need to go ahead and add? And then we had this list. I was actually going to like rip this up and throw it away after we packed, but Alvin was like, no, that'd be a great thing to bring with us so that when we're packing everything back in, you know, you got everything. That's not the only thing this is useful for. If we had lost our bag, if they had really like legitimately lost our bag for good, this would be a gold mine in documenting what we had in the bag. So it's not 100% perfect because I just have like socks, underwear, 4 outfits, but that's going to help a lot whenever you got to put in a claim from what was in the bag, right? I would also highly recommend taking photos of like the inside of your bag and just keeping those on hand because that's also going to help a lot in case they lose your baggage. But this was just something I happened to do just because I like to make lists and check off as I go that ended up being very helpful. So yeah, I think those are the top 3 tips I would give you if you're traveling and you want to prepare for anything. Air tags in all the luggage. Honestly, I just did it in my suitcases. I might throw them in my carry-on next time as a just in case. Got your air tags, got your travel insurance, because that's going to help a ton. And then checklists for whatever's in your baggage. Helped a bunch. Oh, and make sure you keep chargers with you. Good thing is that airports now, there were charging ports everywhere. There are plugs everywhere. So there's always a place to charge. But if we had not brought a charger in our carry-on, we would have been so SOL. So make sure you bring a charger, keep that phone charged. So next. So this is after we got home. We literally passed out that evening. We woke up the next morning and I felt terrible. I felt horrible. I had coughing. I had mucusy, gross sinus stuff happening. Apologies for the TMI. But at that point, we're like, we need to take a COVID test because we probably got COVID where we were in Dallas. Because I have to say, in Newark, it was about 50% of people were wearing masks in the airport. We got to Dallas, it was closer to 10% of people wearing masks. And we did wear our masks the entire time. But so many people were not wearing masks, which, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised because it's Texas, but also... yeah, SOL. So the day after we're back, we wake up, we take COVID tests, and we are positive, COVID positive. So I think we finally got back on a Wednesday. I think we tested positive on a Thursday. So that Friday. We tested positive on Friday. So the good news is that I had already taken off a whole week and a half for this vacation. So I just took that time still and just recovered from COVID because what else am I going to do? I go back to work tomorrow is when I start working again. But we got COVID and so we had to quarantine. So the good news is that my grandmother still had Rex. The bad news is that we exposed my grandmother and my brother because we had no idea that we were positive. And they were in our COVID bubble, so we took our masks off at their house and in the car. We should not have done that. We should have worn our masks because I'm pretty sure we really exposed them. And my grandmother is older. She's retirement age. And my younger brother has asthma. So I felt like shit. But the good news is that she had Rex because we felt so bad that I don't think we could have walked him the first few days that we were back. So COVID, it hit me a lot harder than it hit Alvin because Alvin is fully vaxxed and boosted and I was only fully vaxxed. There at the point, I should have gotten my booster before traveling. I should have. I did not. We were so busy. I did not make time for it. I should have made time for it. And I think it's because I was not boosted that it hit me so much harder than it hit Alvin. So I had the coughing. It was really painful coughing, really bad sore throat, sinuses, no fever on me, surprisingly. And then really terrible body aches, just the worst body aches, especially in my joints that I think I have ever felt, ever. So I was basically just doing Dayquil, NyQuil to get through the symptoms and just do our best to actually rest. I'm terrible at actually resting because I need to feel productive. I need to do shit and I couldn't, which felt terrible. So for the first few days, we literally just sat in bed. I watched YouTube, I watched TV, I tried to rest. After the first few days, we were still under quarantine. So now the CDC recommends a 5-day quarantine. So we ordered our groceries to be delivered. We ordered food to get delivered. And after the first few days, we went to my grandmother's house, masks on, to pick up Rex because I didn't want her to be forced to still keep watching him, especially if she wasn't feeling that good either. So we picked him up. I was outside. We had masks on. We grabbed him. We came home and we finished out our quarantine, and our quarantine as of today that I'm filming it ended yesterday. So I am feeling a lot better. Alvin feels a lot better already. Last night and this morning we tested negative. So after it was 5 days, we started feeling better, and then we tested negative. We're gonna test again tonight just to like make triple sure, but I believe we were past the worst of it. We're past the quarantine. I know the quarantine, it's like 5 days, you have to stay home, nothing. And then the next 5 days, you have to keep wearing your masks everywhere. But to be frank, we never stopped wearing our masks. Whenever we go out shopping, whenever we go out anywhere that's not outside, if we go inside anywhere, we're still wearing our masks. So that's really not going to change a whole lot for us because we're just going to keep doing that. But overall, I'm grateful that even though it did hit me a little hard, it did not require hospitalization. I'm glad I got vaccinated. I am upset at myself that I did not get boosted. I should have gotten boosted, but I talked to my healthcare provider and they said at this point you should wait until the next variation, the next booster is available, because if you get this one, it's not going to do a whole lot now. So keep up with it, because I think now it's going to be like the next kind of flu shot. So we're going to keep up with it. So that's the one thing. I wish I had done that because it probably wouldn't have hit me as hard, but I'm glad I was still able to get over it. So for the COVID, the best recovery tips that I had, just making sure you have some kind of medication on hand for the symptoms. I know some people don't like taking cold flu medication for symptoms, but I needed that. So I was living off of Dayquil, NyQuil every 4 hours. So it was just Dayquil during the day, NyQuil at night. It definitely helped at night too, especially with the coughing and everything. So that helped a ton. And as someone who desperately needs caffeine, but who couldn't like drink coffee, I could not drink coffee at all. Green tea saved me. I did nothing but drink green tea for like 4 days. So I am so glad that like a few weeks ago, as like an early Christmas gift for myself, I bought a electric kettle. I used that thing every couple hours. I was making tea and it was great. So this specific like cherry blossom green tea saved me during this. So I'd highly recommend, because green tea has a lot of caffeine. So as someone who drinks caffeine every day, and if I don't drink caffeine, I get a migraine, this helped me. Because it was good on my throat and it had enough caffeine to prevent migraines from happening. So yeah, those are my best COVID tips, is just make sure you've got that cold medicine on hand, whatever's going to help you. Hot baths with Epsom salt, lifesaver, and then green tea. If I did not have those, I would not have made it. It was bad for me. And I'm glad it didn't hit Alvin as hard as it hit me, because poor thing, he needed a break. And it made me feel better that he didn't get as sick as I did. Oh, and I forgot to mention this, but like it was like day 3 or 4 with COVID is actually when I lost my sense of taste. I couldn't taste the food that I was eating. Like I remember I had like a snack in the afternoon and then I couldn't taste dinner. So that sucked. I'm slowly getting it back. I've tried coffee once and it made me sick, so I went back to green tea. So I'm hoping that coffee doesn't taste different to me now, because I've heard that some people after they get COVID, stuff they used to love tastes terrible to them, and I desperately hope that's not what's going to happen, but I will keep you guys posted. And then the last thing that happened is while we were like literally in bed recovering from COVID, our closet collapsed. I'll throw pictures up, but literally we have like that wired, like cheapy kind of wireframe closet thing. It literally just like ripped out of the wall like the 3rd or 4th day we were recovering. And I was like it was just another thing that we did not need. Ultimately, I'm taking it as an opportunity because I hated our closet anyway. And instead of calling them to fix it, because they would just put up the same wire closet thing, we ordered a new closet insert to build and put in instead of like, layered rods. So I'm gonna make the best of it. I'm gonna pull everything out. We're gonna reorganize. We're gonna make it look all nice. And I'm taking it as an opportunity that at any other time, if I had not just gone through hell at the airport and had not gotten COVID, I would have loved for this to happen, because then I could redo the closet. So I'm trying to keep it positive and redo the closet. And what I'll do is I will film that. I'm going to actually start it this afternoon because our new closet just came in. And that'll go on the vlog channel if you are at all interested in watching me make lemonade out of lemons. So that is it for the story time. We are here. We survived. Other people were able to make it to the wedding. The bride's parents did have to do that. They got out. They drove 4 hours to the other airport and took 2 more flights to get there. But they were able to make it. A lot of other people were able to make it. We just happened to leave at like the worst time where the FAA thing happened. People that left like the day before the wedding or the day of the wedding to get there in time, they actually did make it. So I think there were people that spent a lot of time traveling. Like I know there was a cousin who left the day after us. He spent 3 days traveling to get there. So he actually spent more time traveling than he did at the wedding, but they were able to make it. So Thankfully, the wedding wasn't ruined because I cannot even imagine how much stress the bride must have been under when all of this was happening. So I know we kind of cut our losses because of our current situation. I'm glad we were able to get home safe. I'm glad we recovered well. I'm just so happy that we were together the whole time and that we're recovered and that we're home safe. So let's go ahead and get into the unpack with me. I think I'm literally just gonna like do a nice calming kind of like music over this, and we'll unpack everything that I had packed. So beauty wise, because we already packed the clothes. So we've got like makeup, skincare. I bought so many little minis that I'm just gonna have to use because we're not traveling anytime soon. But we get to see all of that. So let's relax and enjoy unpacking and organizing. Those are like my favorite stress relieving activities, is cleaning and organizing and stuff. Alright, so everything's put away. I feel a lot better, honestly. Just talking it through with you guys, putting everything away, cleaning, it just makes me feel so much lighter and nicer. So thank you guys for listening. I'm sure this was a very different, very strange video, but I really appreciate those who stuck around. I am now going to tackle the closet So if you want to see how that, I will vlog it. So go check out my vlog channel if you want to see the whole process on how we're redoing the closet, because it exploded on us. Thank you guys again for watching, not just this video, but my whole channel. I really, really appreciate it, and I love knowing that you guys are there and so supportive. So thank you for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video. Bye.